You can choose how bright or how dark you want the photo to be, and the camera will take care of the settings for you. Anybody that owns a camera needs to know this, especially beginners. What's good, people? In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you guys the #1 trick that I've come across in my years as a photographer and videographer. I'll teach you what it is, how it works, and when to use it to save you the most time and energy. Now, to explain this trick, I'm going to be using terms such as shutter speed, aperture, ISO, and exposure compensation. So if you're not sure what those mean, check out my camera basics videos in the top corner. I made these videos kind of a while ago, so the quality and my delivery might not necessarily be the best, but I think the content is still there, and I think it'll definitely help you get an understanding of what these terms mean. So we'll take a pause right here and let you go and check those out, and then you can come back. Welcome back. With that out of the way, we can get right into it. My favorite camera trick, and the one I think every beginner photographer should know, is to use shutter priority mode during the day and aperture priority mode at night. It's so simple, but this trick has saved me so much time and energy I cannot even explain it. Here's the theory behind it. At night, light is your main concern. You want as much light hitting your sensor as possible so you don't have to kick up your ISO. Now, with that being said, if you put your camera in auto mode, most of the time it'll drop your shutter speed to something really low like 1/5 just to keep your ISO low. But when you go and take the photo, it's going to be blurred because 1/5 isn't fast enough to prevent you from having motion blur in your photo. And that's where shutter priority mode comes in. Shutter priority mode is a semi-automatic mode that you can put your camera in where you pretty much set your shutter speed and then the camera sets all the rest of the settings for you based on how it think the frame should be exposed. There's a delicate balance when in low light situations that you need to kind of maneuver with your shutter speed. You need it to be low enough to have the most light you possibly can, but it also needs to be high enough so that you don't have too much motion blur. I found my sweet spot to be somewhere in between 1/60 and 1/125, depending on what my subject is. Yes, your photo is going to be a bit more noisy than if you had a slower shutter speed, but in my opinion, a sharper image is better than a clean image. Lightroom can get rid of noise so easy now, it's ridiculous. By contrast, during the day, there's enough light to go around. You can pretty much freely change your shutter speed without having to worry about any motion blur or noisiness in your image. So for the most part, you can leave those settings to your camera, which is exactly what aperture priority mode does. Aperture priority mode is the same as shutter priority mode, except you set your aperture and the camera sets the rest. In bright situations, your aperture is the setting that's going to change the way your image looks the most. And in this mode, you have control over that. If you're shooting portraits, set it anywhere from 1.4 to 2.8. If you're shooting landscapes, set it from f5.6 to f11. It's as simple as that. The very last part of this trick is using exposure compensation. This works in both aperture and shutter priority modes, and is essentially your way of telling the camera how bright or how dark to make the image. It's usually shown on the top of your camera with a dial that ranges from 3 to -3 with half increments in between. If it's set to 0, you'll have a balanced image. It'll have high highs and low lows, but nothing too extreme. But if you want to change the exposure, you can turn this dial up or down, and the camera will change its settings based on which direction you want to change the exposure. It's similar to when you're taking a picture on an iPhone. You can tap to focus, and then if you tap and drag up, it'll make the picture brighter, and if you drag down, it'll make the picture darker. Just imagine the exposure compensation number going up and down next to that slider. This process still gives you control over how your image looks, but it simplifies the process of getting the correct exposure, which I feel like is one of the harder things to figure out as a beginner photographer. So this just makes that step a little bit easier. Hopefully that made sense. If not, leave a comment down below and I'll do my best to try and explain things even further. This is a trick that I've used countless times on both professional and casual shoots, and it's made my life significantly easier, and hopefully it'll do the same for you guys. As always, thank you guys for watching. Leave a like if you found this helpful, subscribe for more videos, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.